You know,
All right. One of these times, I swear we're getting the technology right. We're learning something new every time. So this is our first hybrid. So that echoing thing was new, but we'll get it. So we're gonna talk about forgiveness, but before I get into that discussion, I want to share some examples that inspire me about forgiveness. And the first one I want to mention to you or talk to you about is it's from a book that was written by Jack Kornfield, who was a really well-renowned Buddhist teacher. And the title of the book is The Art of Forgiveness, Loving Kindness, and Peace. And in this book, he writes about an African tribe called the Bibamba people. And in this tribe, when a person acts irresponsibly or unjustly, he or she is placed in the center of the village, alone and unfettered. All work ceases, and every man, woman, and child in the village gathers in a large circle around the accused individual. Then each person in the tribe speaks to the accused one at a time, each recalling the good things that the person in the center of the circle has done in his or her lifetime. Every incident, every experience that can be recalled with any detail and accuracy is recounted. All his positive attributes, good deeds, strengths, and acts of kindness are recited carefully and at length. This tribal ceremony often lasts for days. In the end, the tribal circle is broken, a joyous celebration takes place, and the person is symbolically and literally welcomed back into the tribe. Can you imagine if that's how we treated people that do things wrong? Is that how we treat our kids? It's a completely different, it's a paradigm shift in how we look at people and when they make a mistake. So that's an amazing example of forgiveness to me. Another one is, it actually goes back to ancient Hawaii, back during the tribal times of Hawaii. And in these tribes, when something or someone does something wrong unjustly toward a family member or a tribal member, they don't do it like the Babamba people do it, but it's similar. They bring in a person known as the kahuna. Probably all heard of the term, the big kahuna. Well, kahuna is sort of another word for shaman in Hawaii. And the kahuna will come in and work with the affected people, whether it's a family or perhaps a tribal issue. And he will work with these individuals for as long as it takes, could be days, until every bit of forgiveness on either side has been accomplished. So there's not a trace of resentment or any ill will toward anybody. These indigenous cultures know how toxic holding on to anger, resentment, and negative feelings can be. And they'll do whatever it takes to extinguish those feelings before, it has any negative effect on their population. That got lost with us somehow. So those are inspiring stories. There's one more I want to share. This is probably the most powerful one that I know about. And it goes back to April 7th of 1994. And all of us were clearly around. busy adults during that time. And what was happening in another part of the world was a killing spree in Rwanda. It lasted for 100 days. It's when the Hutu people were on a mission to extinguish the Tutsis. It was genocide. And when it was all over, 800,000 Tutsi were dead, and tens of thousands of Hutu. And then the reconciliation process that happened after that, you can imagine these two groups of people were still living together in this country and had to figure out a way forward. So the local government, they have a system where they have trials. And these trials were not a fact-finding and judgment process like we normally think of. It was providing a space where the perpetrators were brought face to face with victims in the broader community to confess and ask for forgiveness. Victims were given the opportunity to publicly speak the truth of what they endured. Literally thousands and thousands of Hutu stood up to share their horrific experiences. So the Rwandans were acting from this premise that reconciliation is actually possible, even in this the most extreme situation you can imagine. And they created a model of reconciliation that enabled them to understand and close one chapter of their terrible history and begin to write a new one. And that happened 28 years ago. And today they're living amongst each other in peace. I mean, it's not easy. They actually have a group that monitors the reconciliation process all these years later to see how they're doing. And remarkably, that's a pretty low percentage of people that still harbor, the really severe resentments and the toxicity from that experience. But it's quite a model for us to look at. And then I'll end this with a quote. One of my favorite people in history, who's really just a great model of forgiveness for us all. He said that resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemy. And that was Nelson Mandela. So this is a guy that spent 28 years in prison, much of it hard labor, just because he was standing up against apartheid. And you can imagine that would probably, for a lot of people, cause a lot of resentment. But when he got out, he just focused on mending fences and finding peace. And he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And within 4 years, he was the first democratically elected president of South Africa. So it's amazing what's possible when that road's chosen versus the road of resentment, revenge, all those things. So if only our friends in the Kremlin would think the same thing. But it goes on both sides. All the blame isn't just there. I'm sure all sides have something to do with all that's happening. So those are the models of forgiveness that I wanted to share with you. And now I just kind of want to open up, as I often do, and talk about, what forgiveness really means. What is it? I think a lot of people think forgiveness means letting someone off the hook. But that's really not what it is. It's really letting ourselves off the hook, because we're the ones carrying that burden. The burden of, like I talked about, burden of resentment, burden of anger, burden of fear, all those burdens, all that, the weight of those negative emotions that hold us back from being a peaceful, loving person. So I would love to hear from anybody. And I think, Dean, would you do me a favor and just ask them to take their conversation a little bit?
Yeah.
So there's a wilderness school program happening outside our door, and they're talking right outside our door. But it's really awesome. They brought a group up from Bridgeport to our facility here, and they're taking them out for the day. So it's awesome, but it's also distracting. So, um, so anybody have any thoughts about forgiveness? How easy is it to forgive somebody? Not very. Sometimes. Who's forgiveness for? I mentioned that a little bit, but
Are you asking for participation?
yeah, this is the awkward part where I try to get someone else to talk a little bit.
Is my mic on or is it?
You have to unmute. Yeah, so at this point you can unmute and share any thoughts.
Okay, can I go?
Sure.
Hey everybody, so I had this experience recently where my son is out in Texas and he's really struggling in a deep, profound way. A hopelessness. And jumped on a plane, went out to see him, and we had almost a week of ongoing marathon conversations, which unveiled, some deep pains that he has, some regarding our family, some regarding other things, and his lack of being able to, forgive anybody was just eating him up. And out of the process that we had, I got to see mistakes that I had made as a father that I hadn't thought about or thought were as deep as they might have been. I always thought I was a pretty good guy and did my best, and what happened out of it, it unlocked for me the lack of forgiveness that I have for my ex-wife. That I began to see for the first time since my divorce 4 years ago, owning my own responsibility in it. And I saw in a spiritual way that in order to help my son, I needed to forgive myself and forgive my ex-wife. So my ex and I had dinner the other night and had a very profound, long conversation. And when forgiveness happened on both sides, there was nothing there but love. And magically, in talking with my son, he's now coming out of his dark place. So it's never been a more profound personal experience for me of how we may not even know where we need to forgive people. And being reminded and being open to the uncomfortable conversation, to be brave and to, I don't know that I would have done it if my love for my son wasn't as strong as it was, because I'm trying to help him, and what I did was help all of us. So, and we live in a world where there's not much willingness to own it. And that's the phrase that comes back to me, and I needed to own my own peace and my own forgiveness. So, yeah, it's been a big, big step for me and our family.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Beth, you had your hand up.
Hey, Bill. I was just going to say on a more generic note, I guess, that through different events and things that happen in life growing up, relationships, spouses, kids, friends, that to me, it has been more, I guess, like Dean said, where you have to find it in yourself to forgive somebody takes a lot of courage and trust, and peace within yourself is really the reward of what comes after. And it takes away boundaries that allow you to then grow with that person.
Mhm.
And I think if you don't do that, it continues to keep you back and prevent you from, like Dean's experience in truly loving or helping. And I have friends who are in that experience, and you can see that you can't help them. They have to help themselves. And yeah, it's not easy for sure, but thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough when you can see someone being just eaten from the inside because they're just hanging on and they feel like somehow, like Nelson Mandela said, somehow that poison that's in them is going to hurt the other person. And the other person could be like out on vacation, having the time of their life, and just everything's wonderful. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have any thoughts on what forgiveness might mean to them, to you? What do we get if we don't forgive? What's in it for us? Miles,
Good morning.
good morning.
Hey, could you, I just don't know if muting yourself, Bill, at this moment would reduce that that kickback right now. Let's just see how that goes. Let's seem to do it. So I start with the word resentment, and its meaning in French is to live again as if for the first time. And if I'm going to keep doing that, if it's feeding something, some dark part of me that has no spiritual nutritional value, the question is, why do I do it? So I develop a hunger for it. And that's an awareness for me. So the forgiving piece is very, very deep, because I have to learn actually how to forgive myself in order to truly understand how I can forgive others. And there's so much about myself that I deny, that I have to uncover and keep doing this work. So it's an acceptance every day to say, hey, where am I at in this moment? I accept that there's not going to be any proficiency around any of this. It's just a re-upping every day to actually get my instrument attuned to forgiveness. And here we find ourselves, the other piece was you used the word reconciliation, and that really just has me cocking my head to one side, because it implies that there was actually an initial harmony, right? Conciliation might be the better word for it. I don't know, but I can't look back and say that we've actually ever, as a species, been harmonious and lived in peace. So to start with that and say, how do we figure this out? Because we've developed, tribal mentalities. We otherize. We look at the differences. And again, it's about now uncovering, what are my prejudices? What are my biases? What have I just learned unconsciously to otherize? So all of that is exhausting on a daily basis, to arrive at a place where I can prepare myself to then lean into forgiveness. But these practices that you offered us today, are inspiring, because it's certainly not something that we know as a dominant culture. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for pointing out that the continuing echo. It's Dean and I going back and forth because we're both on Zoom in the same room. So I'll mute when I can. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Dean.
Is
Dean, you're on mute.
Yeah, so Dean, did you have anything else, or was that just a technology thing? Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is just in terms of where we are in the world and how can we each one of us contribute to peace in the world. And I really truly believe that it has to be an individual effort. We can't just wait for a country to decide, let's be peaceful and let's not, act in a certain way. Gandhi, it's a cliche and overused phrase probably, but to be the change you want to see in the world, that's what he was talking about. That's what we're talking about now, is if we want to see peace in the world, if we want to see love, we have to be it ourselves. And the only way to do that is to let go of anything that's counter to that. So anything that isn't love, we have to let go. And that's not easy to do. It's sometimes a lifelong practice, like Dean mentioned, and it's definitely not easy. And not everyone's ready right away to let go of, especially if it's been harmed seriously. A lot of people have had some pretty heavy trauma in their lives, and yeah, so it's something that we all work toward. But that's the path to peace. So I have a actual exercise. I'm wondering how I'm gonna. Oh, I don't hear it now. I was hearing some feedback, but that sounds better.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it loud enough so that we can hear it here.
Oh,
But still not echo.
I hear it. Okay. We'll have to figure this out.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, but I can.
Well, maybe if you, I
But-
could,
No, I mean the other.
Yeah.
if I take my headphones out and you turn yours down, you can just hear here, maybe.
I've got it turned over again.
Dean, do you have headphones?
I don't know.
Maybe we should both be on headphones. Well,
For next time.
next time. All right, so I want to walk us through an actual forgiveness exercise. And this was also a Jack Cornfield exercise that I found, and I think is pretty great. So what Jack says is that forgiveness is fundamentally for our own sake, which we've been talking about, and for our own mental health. It's a way to let go of the pain that we carry. And he used a story to illustrate this. It's a story of two ex-prisoners of war who meet after many years. And the first one asks, "Have you forgiven your captors?" And the second one says, "No, never." Well, then the first man replies, "They still have you in prison." And I think that's a great analogy, that we are imprisoned when we're holding on to all those negative feelings. So the path to forgiveness is a path to liberation. So to practice forgiveness, this is another meditation. I'm kind of going heavy on meditation today, but I think that's okay. This is going to be guided. I'm going to talk through it, but it's probably best if you just get comfortable and sit in a relaxed position and just take this in. So let yourself sit comfortably, allowing your eyes to close and your breath to be natural and easy. Let your body and mind relax. Breathing gently into the area of your heart. Let yourself feel all the barriers you have erected and the emotions that you have carried because you have not forgiven yourself, not forgiven others. Let yourself feel the pain of keeping your heart closed. Then breathing softly, begin asking and extending forgiveness, reciting the following words, letting the images and feelings that come up grow deeper as you repeat them. The first meditation is forgiveness of others that you may have harmed. There are many ways that I've hurt and harmed others, have betrayed or abandoned them, caused them suffering, knowingly or unknowingly, out of my pain, fear, anger, and confusion. Let yourself remember and visualize the ways you've hurt others. See and feel the pain you have caused out of your own fear and confusion. Feel your own sorrow and regret. Sense that finally you can release this burden and ask for forgiveness. Picture each memory that still burdens your heart. And then to each person in your mind, repeat, I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. This meditation is forgiveness for yourself. There are many ways that I've hurt and harmed myself. I betrayed or abandoned myself many times through thought, word, or deed, knowingly or unknowingly. Feel your own precious body and life. Let yourself see the ways you have hurt or harmed yourself. Picture them, remember them. Feel the sorrow you've carried from this and sense that you can release these burdens. Extend forgiveness for each of them, one by one. Repeat silently after me. For the ways I've hurt myself through action or inaction, out of fear, pain, and confusion, I now extend a full and heartful forgiveness. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. And the third meditation is forgiveness for those who have hurt or harmed you. There are many ways that I've been harmed by others, abused or abandoned, knowingly or unknowingly, in thought, word, or deed. Let yourself picture and remember these many ways. Feel the sorrow you've carried from this past and sense that you can release this burden of pain by extending forgiveness when your heart is ready. Now repeat silently after me. I now remember the many ways others have hurt or harmed me. Out of fear, pain, confusion, and anger, I have carried this pain in my heart too long. To the extent that I'm ready, I offer them forgiveness. To those who have caused me harm, I offer my forgiveness. I forgive you. Let yourself gently repeat these three directions for forgiveness until you feel a release in your heart. For some great pains, you may not feel a release, but only the burden and the anguish or anger you have held. Touch this softly. Be forgiving of yourself for not being ready to let go and move on. Forgiveness cannot be forced. It cannot be artificial. Simply continue the practice and let the words and images work gradually in their own way. In time, you can make the forgiveness meditation a regular part of your life, letting go of the past and opening your heart to each new moment with a wise, loving kindness. And when you're ready, can come back to the room or the Zoom. Dean is up next. And I think you're muted. Yeah.
Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth. The peace that was meant to be with God as our Father, brothers, oh we. Let me walk with my brother, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me.
Thank you, Dean. I forgot to mute. I hope it was okay. Oh, before I forget, I'm gonna put up some abilities to make a donation. This place that we're at, Sticks and Stones Farm, it's where we hold a lot of events and do a lot of stuff, and it's a pretty big place to keep up. So if anyone feels so moved, there are a couple ways to donate. I'm gonna put up, this is the card we put out at events. So we have PayPal and Venmo. PayPal is pay.me/Love Has a Home Here. And our Venmo is just Love Has a Home Here. If you want to just make any contribution that feels good for you, we really appreciate it here. And if you need a link or something, you can always go to the Sticks and Stones Farm website or the lovehasahome.org website and contact me that way. But I'd like to just thank you in advance for supporting our mission here to just provide a space that we can share love and inspire love and all those great things. Before we close with a prayer, is there any last reflections or comments or shares?
For prayer requests?
Oh.
For prayer requests?
Yeah, if you have anyone you want to include in our thoughts as we close out the prayer, welcome to share that as well. We'll keep whoever that might be in our thoughts. Go ahead, Anne.
I would love it if we could keep Vince Arminio in our thoughts.
Yes, thank you.
Struggles to stay with us. Thank you.
I would just like to add something.
Okay.
It took me a while for this to come through from my brain to my mouth, but it was only when I was able to forgive myself that I was able to forgive my late husband and the resentment that I had for the financial situation he left me in, and realized that I just didn't know enough that I could have changed that scenario. And one of your forgiveness sessions, the Ho'oponopono, I think I'm saying it right,
Yes.
was really valuable to me to realize that. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, there's a really beautiful Ho'oponopono meditation that I did in an earlier service. It might have been the first or second service. We were outside still back in September or October. And so I took a little slightly different track this time. I'll bring it back out again eventually. Yeah. All right, so we will close out with a prayer, and we'll be keeping Vince and the people of Ukraine and the people of the world, anyone who's suffering in our hearts. Let us give thanks to our Creator, the God of our understanding, for the unconditional love, compassion, and forgiveness that lies within each of us. You created us in your image, which is pure love. And from that place dwells within us eternal peace. Give us the strength and will to cultivate this peace so that we can inspire those around us to do the same. As each of us becomes peace, the world becomes peace. With this energy of love, we pray for those who are suffering in the world, and we forgive those who inflict it. We let go of resentment, anger, and all emotions of fear so that our bright light of peace can shine into the places of darkness in the world. Amen. With that, at 10:58, I think we're at a good spot to bid you all farewell.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, everybody. And apologies again for technology glitches. We'll get Dina headsets for next time. All right, everyone, have an awesome rest of your Sunday. And hope I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You're
Bill.
welcome. You're
Thanks a
welcome.
lot.
Thank you, Bill.
Beautiful way to
Welcome.
start the day. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.